Aussie author and journalist Trent Dalton is a favourite of ours here on the Sunday Session. We like to think of him as a friend of the show. Many of you will be familiar with his smash hit Boy Swallows universe, a story based on Trent's childhood that was adopted into the Netflix show. Trent is the master of telling the stories of everyday people, and his new book is no exception. Drawing on his own life, Gravity Let Me Go has been called his most personal book yet. Trent is in Auckland for the stage adaptation of his book Love Stories. Trent Dalton, thank you so much for coming in. Welcome.
Francesca, I am a friend of the show, and it's so good to be back, and thank you for having me. It's so great to just sit in here and have a chat with someone I really admire. Thank you.
You were so busy. I mean, you're in town for Love Stories, you're releasing a book. Yeah. It's kind of like you've turned into the Trent Dalton empire.
Yeah, well, it's kind of what my latest book's about, actually. It's amazing. It's funny, I wrote this meta book about a guy in crisis because he keeps focusing on his storytelling addiction. And like, it's so funny that as I'm talking about a book that is all about that I am inside the busiest period of my life. You know, the whole book the whole story of Gravity Let Me Go is this journo who keeps obsessing about the story of his lifetime, and he's in danger of missing an even bigger scoop, and that's something that's involving his wife and kids. And it's just like, well, that's the story of my life, Francesca. Like, it's like, you know, I'm here always knowing that at home, my daughter's got a literature exam that she's got to be getting right. I've got to be helping out with Fiona, my wife, you know, a million things at home. You know what I mean? It's sort of like this empire needs to just take a pause for a bit. But it's so funny that, yeah, it's so amazing you say that. But you're right, I'm incredibly busy. Yeah.
What keeps bringing you back to your own life for these works of fiction?
Yeah, I don't know, it's sick, isn't it? Like, it's like, what's wrong with me? Like, I really wish I could write a Scottish time travel tale. I wish I could write about Romans. You know, there's so many things I want to write about Vikings. And I sometimes sit down and I started, Francesca, with this book. I want to write a story about two sisters who are the daughter of a hitman. And I'm really excited about that story. I really want to write that book. But then I thought, no, I want to write about my marriage. I want to write about long-term relationships. And if something like that speaks to me and I get a little voice in my head that goes, no, you need to honor that truth, essentially. Like, I've been a journo for 25 years now, and I spent 20 of those years going into the living rooms of just ordinary strangers, and they sat down and they let me sit in their living rooms, Francesca, for like 4 hours as we both, you know, sometimes wept over their lives, and they shared the most personal things. And sometimes I lost sleep at night about how I treated those people in print. Like, I would actually really worry about how did I leave those people better or worse than how I found them. And sometimes I got it wrong, particularly in my early ambitious 20s, when I was trying to make a name for myself as a journo or whatever I was trying to do. And I made this pact that if I ever got a chance to write stories about myself, then it's all in, you know, like, they get a lot of me. And I'm honoring like literally 1,000 people who honored me with their stories. And so that's sort of why I can't help but keep coming back. And there were so many things to say in Gravity about, I wanted to write a story about a marriage in crisis. And I'm not saying my marriage is in crisis, but it's come close, to be honest. It's come close at times. And I really wanted to kind of go there and go, I'm so proud of my wife and I, the way we've overcome any difficulties because of all my stuff, you know. And yeah, I wanted to put that in a book.
But I think it's going to resonate with people because relationships are a roller coaster.
Well, aren't they?
You know?
Yeah. They're the couples I really love talking to. Those ones who have been at it for, 20 years, 40 years, and I meet them 60 years. I just go, hats off, because you imagine the evolution that's taken in a relationship to go that far, with all of the difficulties of life that come in. And that's true love. I'm fascinated by, I thought I loved my wife when I was 20, when I met her, January 10, 2000. And it's like, she's 10 times more interesting than she was when I was 20. It's like, that's brilliant. That's really exciting.
Well, it's beautiful. Who is the first person to read this book or read a chapter when you've completed it?
Fee. Yeah, my wife Fee. And it's horrific. Like, she's a journo herself, Francesca. So she puts on it things like she'll write I print it out at Officeworks, and then I give her the big manuscript, and then she put on this one things like no, or there's a scene in it like it's. So the whole thing is this. It's about this journo who gets this scoop of a lifetime, literally lands in his letterbox. It's a message from a killer leading him on a trail of breadcrumbs to a body. And it's almost like, how far will you go, mate? Like, for the story of a lifetime, would you go so far as to endangering your family, and would you actually go so far as endangering your own life? And in the meantime, he's missed this incredible thing that's happening with his wife at home. And I won't sort of spoil that, but it's such a sort of metaphor for my life, which is why Fee had to read it. And I just go, look, you are in this, and you're not, but you are, And so she reads it and she goes, why do you have to go there? And I just go, I'm so sorry. But there's power in it. My favorite writers are people who mine a little bit of themselves, like, and be a bit truthful with their fiction, and I just think that's such a powerful thing to do. And so I have to. And this amazing wife of mine says, yeah, it's awkward. It's awful in parts, but go for it. You know what I mean? Like, what an ultimately loving thing that she lets me do, It's an actual sort of act of love that she says, go for it, because I know you need to in your head, And it's all tied back to Boy Swallows Universe stuff. It's all one big spirograph, Francesca, where I'm trying to explore all what's it like being married to the kid from Boy Swallows Universe, basically, is what Gravity's about, That's ultimately what it ends up being about, yeah.
It's like you explored your younger self in the previous book, and now we're doing it again with the adult version, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about this obsessiveness that Noah has with the story. As you say, we've got this journalist who's just wondering how far he can go. Tell me a little bit about that and where that's come from. Were you like that as a journalist?
Oh, completely. There was a period. I've still got it. I would do anything for copy. Like I did. I went on. I remember I had no right to be in Afghanistan with Australian soldiers, but I went, and I was on a village walk with a guy who was looking after me with a grenade launcher. And if you need a guy looking after you on a it was a patrol. It was a patrol in Afghanistan with a guy who was looking after, and I was just like, what am I doing here? I'm not a war correspondent. I have nothing to offer the national record on Australia on the importance of this mission. But I did it for copy, and I remember I walked into the basement of this really well-known serial killer in Australia, his brother, who was implicated in his brother's crimes. I remember distinctly going down into that guy's basement, right, with him. He said, I want to show you something in my basement. And we walked down the back of this guy's staircase. We crept under. We got into this basement, Francesca. And he goes, go further, deeper. And he took me to the end of this basement. I remember just going, this is dangerous. Like, this guy hasn't been we don't know whether this guy did or didn't do these crimes he's been accused of. And I'm going down there for copy because I knew on Saturday it's going to make a great read on the Saturday Weekend magazine, And it's like, I was a new dad at that point. I was just like, how far would you go? And it's like that's a journo thing, and it's terrifying.
Okay,
yeah.
So do you think it's about assessing risk, and you're just not very good at assessing risk?
Yes. Yeah. Putting storytelling over risk. That's something journos do all the time. You see it. I remember I wanted to jag an interview with this head of a outlaw motorcycle gang in Australia. It was really impossible to get. This guy just was about to get out of prison, and his lawyer took me out on a boat on the Brisbane River. And I remember I was on this sort of speedboat with the lawyer and us, like a sergeant at arms from this famous outlaw motorcycle gang. And I remember going, what am I doing out on the water with these known criminals just in order to possibly show that I'm going to be trustworthy enough to be granted this interview? You know what I mean? And you're just going, are they, they could tie some rocks to my legs and just throw me down in the river, but you're there for copy. And it's like, yeah, I just think it's a journo. It's a blank spot. It's a dark spot in a journo's life. They can't see risk because they're so blinded by the power of that story and the scoop. We're so driven by the scoop sometimes. And I had that. And now I've got different scoops that I'm chasing. It's the scoop of ideas, really. Like I get hooked on an idea, and I'll be standing in the kitchen, Francesca, and Fee's talking to me, and she knows. She goes, oh, damn it, you're doing it again. You're thinking about the story. And she's like, book week, remember, we got to get the book week costume, and it's like, don't forget that book week costumes are actually why you're here. You're not here to dazzle readers. You're here to be a dad, and you're here to be a husband. Remember that, mate. So that's what Gravity's about.
Do you see that? Are you worried about your children and their ability to assess risk?
Oh,
are you seeing it in them?
Yeah, it's like, please don't. My youngest daughter's got the bug. So, my favourite character in Gravity is this guy, Noah Corks, who's the lead sort of journo sort of hero of the story, or anti-hero. But he's got this incredible daughter who wants to be a journo too. And that's just my youngest daughter. I see it in her, Francesca, worryingly. She's got the story bug. But this kid, Clam, in Gravity, she does journalism for all the right reasons. She wants to talk about the light. She wants to go interview the strangers in her street and remind them why they're amazing. And it's like, that's why actually I did get into journalism. That's my favourite type of journalism.
And we should touch on that too, because I think that this is something which we see in all your books. You have this beautiful balance of light and dark.
Oh, yeah.
There's that hopefulness, that joy. It's always there. Just when you think you're going down a bit of a dark hole, there's just, whether it's a moment of humour or a reflection or something, there's that lightness there as well, isn't there?
Oh, that's from my life. That's, the Dalton boys are on a train to go visit our mum in Boggo Road Women's Prison, and we're telling jokes to each other, because we all know how sad it's going to be, like I think that's beautiful. That absolutely comes from my childhood, and I so admire New Zealand kids, Aussie kids who face the worst traumas and they're living in the cracks, and those little beams of light are coming down through humour and love, and they're the beams that they cling to. And I just think that's so powerful. You can really make that light bright if you show people how dark things can get. Yeah. But you've got to go down into the darkness to let that stuff shine so bright.
You're in town because, of course, Love Stories is on our stage at the moment, a very special book which has come to life in this theatre piece. How exciting has that been?
Civic Theatre in Auckland might be the greatest. I know it is. It's not even I've been in London theatres, and that matches anything I've seen in the world. It's the gorgeous, most beautiful thing. Isn't it gorgeous? Like, I just am so honoured that this story had this idea to take a typewriter to a corner and ask 200 people to tell me about love. They turned it into a play, and now that thing's playing in the Civic Theatre. It's like, are you kidding? It's amazing. It's the great... I wanted to honour my best mate's mum who handed me this typewriter. It was her best friend, this 1970s sky blue Olivetti typewriter. She said, do something with it. I wrote a book, went out to a street, asked people all these stories, and now it makes its way to Auckland somehow. It's just incredible. Yeah.
I think it's going to go a little bit further than that. I think the empire is going to keep spreading, isn't it? It's just going to keep going. I mean, love stories are so important, right? Everyone's, life's a bit tough at the moment. Everyone's finding things a little bit hard. And at the end of the day, if you've got some love in your life, you can see that glimmer, can't you? You can see the light.
That's the whole message of the story. There's the whole play eventually ends up being a revelation of why I was on the corner anyway. It's the same stuff I'm exploring in Gravity, is that there were things I actually needed to fix in my marriage that all these wonderful strangers reminded me of. And the greatest thing you'll ever take from that play, if you go see it, is to drive home and go, I am so lucky I've got 5 people in my life who love me. I'm so lucky I've got 1 person in my life still. You know what I mean? And to remember also the people who don't have love, that there are a lot of people in this city, Auckland, I know, who have fallen through the cracks, and you ask anyone, the toughest thing to do in life to live without is love. Forget, food's tough and shelter's tough, but love's still the one that makes life really rough if you don't have it, so that play sort of speaks to that as well. Yeah.
Trent, thank you so much for your vulnerability, for your brilliant writing, and for just putting out so much goodness and gorgeousness into the world. Thank you so much.
Right back at you. That's what you do. Thanks, Francesca. What an honour.